Well,
here we are.
Another episode of Misfit Social podcast. It's good to have the mayor of Madisonville with us, otherwise known as Smokey and the Bandit. And
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
I look forward to a speedy podcast.
All right. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Get
Yes.
through this. There are limits.
Yeah. There are. There
Yeah,
are
we
limits.
believe in pushing the limits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, so Kevin, again, good to have you. You got an amazing story from whether we're talking about your success as an entrepreneur, being a restaurant owner. You and your wife were given from the state. You were the parents of the year, right? A few years ago for foster parents.
Oh, cool.
yeah, we were, and then we were honored with some recognition from Congress as well, from Congressman James Comer, as Angels in Adoption. That's a program that goes on in D.C. So we were honored to have that recognition. We don't feel like we deserve it. I mean, we're just doing what it is that we do as parents, right?
How long have you been doing that?
We've been foster parents for 23 years.
Oh, long time.
We've had just over 50 kids in
Incredible.
and out of our home throughout that time period. Some of them were, they were there for 2 weeks, and then some of them have been there for 23 years.
So did some of them lead to adoption?
We have 4 that we've adopted, yes.
Okay. Any natural children?
No biological children.
Hmm.
They're all foster adoptive kids. We have 5 that live with us right now. So
Yeah.
Beautiful.
we love it. I mean, it's been a ministry for us.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd like this podcast to go on for quite a long time then, so you can just kind of
Yeah.
have a little reprieve from that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I have to give the credit to my wife. I mean,
Yeah.
Donna is an amazing
Absolutely,
woman,
you'd have to.
and she's been able to handle that at home while I'm out doing the mayor piece, and she does a fantastic job with that. And
I mean, every kid that comes into the home has a different set of challenges, right? Like how you guide them and
Yeah.
the way you discipline, get through to them. I mean, it's crazy that
Absolutely.
to have that many
Man, we
kids come through your
commend you.
home.
Yeah.
that's
We
pretty
commend
crazy.
you for
thank you.
providing a life for those children in such an incredible way for so many.
Yeah, so Kevin, let's back up just a little bit. When you and I first really started working together, it was because you had Brothers Barbecue. I was owner of the Crowded House, and we talk about a lot of different things about the challenges in business. And then prior to the school venture that I went in on, I actually came and met with you about the idea of being
Yes.
a foster parent or
Mhm.
adoptive parent. So just for the listening audience, and I know you pretty well, but Royce and Paul are just getting to know you. Just give us a quick backstory on, hey, how did you get in the barbecue business? How did you end up being a foster parent? And then now a politician.
Politician, that's a strong word.
It's a
Yeah,
strong
man.
word.
Do we have to call it a politician?
No.
But
Shoe fits, bud.
yeah, the shoe does fit. So, it kind of started. I've been in the barbecue business for 27 years. I'm the 4th generation. My grandfather had it. My great grandfather ended up with it. My uncles and my mother ended up with it, and then I ended up with it.
Wow.
It's changed forms throughout the 4 generations. Right, it's not always been the same. When it first started, they had their own hogs, their own chickens. They raised everything right there on site. So there's a big difference from then to now.
Was that in Madisonville or somewhere?
It was actually in St. Charles. So
Okay.
it was right down on Highway 62 in St. Charles where that one started. Then when my mother ended up with it, it was on Anton Road out by Lone Star. There at what is now the
Catfish
place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that used to be where she was at. My wife and I were living in Greenville at the time. I was working 3 jobs as an emergency medical technician, and decided to go back to the funeral home with Steve Carson at Barnett Strother Funeral Home. He hired me when I was 15. Decided that it was just too much working 3 different ambulance services, working all the time, not making enough money to be able to meet ends for home. So Steve gave me the opportunity to come back. I took my last paycheck from Barnett Strother Funeral Home, rented a small 12 by 14 building in downtown Greenville, spent $50 for my first stove and $50 for my first refrigerator. And it was one of those old, you probably won't, you all would remember it. It's one of those
I like the way you said that. I like the way you said that.
He'll remember.
One of those old-fashioned ones, there's a single door and you open it up and it had an ice box inside of it that would frost up and you had to chisel it off. And, so that's how I started. And then the Lord has just blessed us to a point that where we are today here in Madisonville. I always had a drive to want to get to Madisonville from Muhlenberg County. I just had that sense that if I could ever get over here, that it would change the trajectory of my family, and it truly has. I mean, we've been honored to be where we're at. Been bivocational my whole life, so I've had multiple jobs at the same time. I'm not one of those that just likes to sit still. Mm-hmm. So being able to have 2 jobs kept me busy. And that's kind of brought me to where I'm at today, right? So I worked for the fire department, and I stayed there for about 7 years. Was injured in an off-duty accident at Brothers.
Remember that? That was scary.
We were remodeling the kitchen and got into 240 volt 3-phase power.
Whoa!
With
on the top of a ladder.
On top of a ladder with 2 hands. So I connected. I completed the circuit, and it just stayed inside of my body. Where in most cases, if you grab a hold of it with one hand, it's going to exit somewhere else.
Get out through the ground.
It didn't want to get out. It wanted to stay in. So it blew my shoulders up, burnt my lungs, knocked me off of the. Me off of the ladder. As I was coming off the ladder, I remember it. Like I remember everything except for the moment that the wire came out of my hands. But I can still remember each pulse. I can hear it today. Like I can still sense it. But as I was coming off that ladder, it knocked me off. And then when I fell on the ground, it put one of my shoulders back in place. So they didn't even know that shoulder was injured.
Popped out.
So
it took him out of socket.
Yeah, out of socket and then broke the left one.
Wow.
Just the current.
Yes.
Yeah, not the fall.
Not the
current.
fall. It was the current that blew it out. And so naturally, you can just imagine that in the hospital, I had a lot of folks coming by to check on me, to ask me questions because they hadn't had somebody that had completed a circuit that they could talk to. But the Lord had a different plan for me.
Absolutely.
I mean, he obviously wants more out of me and wants me to do more for him. And so that's where I'm at today. That process took me out of the fire department. I was off work for 8 months. I went back for a year. The challenge was I couldn't breathe with my lungs being burnt. It just didn't work, right? I couldn't, there was mold and there was smoke and there was exhaust and it just didn't work. So I was sick constantly. So decided to go back and focus on Brothers. And we've expanded Brothers, and now we're back down to just the simple one restaurant operation. But because of that, I learned a lot about the city. Being a firefighter, when I left, I was a captain in the fire prevention division. So I was doing the inspections in the businesses and pre-planning and working with schools for fire prevention.
You just saw everything.
Yes, I was able to be a part of every aspect of what was going on in the community. And then working with each one of the factories through fire extinguisher trainings or life safety training, working with each of the departments within the city, making sure that they had the life safety training that they needed. So I've created through that process a lot of friendships and learned a lot. So when I went back to Brothers, I still heard from those folks, right? And so they wanted me to know what was going on, and I just saw some opportunities.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was
Who
probably
pushed
too
you
long.
into running for mayor? Was it your own idea, or did somebody pony that up for you?
No, it just kind of happened, right? I mean, there's just doors that open, and I just saw an opportunity. Not that our previous mayor wasn't doing a good job, because he was. He was doing some things that was setting the city up for the future. He was focused on the debt service of the city and trying to get us financially in a position that we can do what needs to be done. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for the foundation that each of the mayors before me have put into place. You know, I talk about it being blocks in a foundation. and we're just another block, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the process of, and right now we're in the process of building that up, so into a structure.
So how long have you been mayor?
I've been mayor for 6 years.
That's
so I'm
long
in my
enough to
second
get some
term.
traction. Yeah.
We've seen a lot of traction, a lot of cool stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it without donors, right? I mean,
Right.
And I'm going to give Cliff and his family some credit here. They believed in me and gave me an opportunity to run for this position, as well as many other donors to make that happen. I had a very
I donated to your campaign, but I didn't vote for you. I didn't tell
right.
you that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's how that works.
I get it. It was the donation that mattered. So, but I appreciate the donation.
Nice one. That was perfect.
Touche.
Yeah.
But it was, we had a very contentious race. I was up against a very popular Republican candidate and an incumbent. So I was Republican. I was actually the first Republican primary in Hopkins County.
Yep.
Wow.
And again, nothing against.
So they run uncontested all this other time.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
So we and that was typical. I mean, at that point, they were still Hopkins County was still strong Democratic controlled.
Mm-hmm.
During my election, there was a lot of recognition that I can't vote for him because I'm not a Republican. Right. So during the primary, at that time, it was still a partisan primary. Now it's a nonpartisan primary. The council made that decision.
Yeah.
But it was tough, and without the support of the community and believing in what we had that we could offer, I mean, I'm thankful for that. Because my story is not just the family piece and the restaurant piece, and my story goes even deeper to that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But
So this is weird. I'm sorry.
Grand interrupter.
Well, yeah, I'm the great interrupter. So, so I was
you
just
look
thinking
like you can be that guy, right?
yeah, I think I earned it. Anyway, like the Democratic and Republican makeup, has it changed in this area?
It has.
Is that the deal?
It's flipped, and it's flipped. I'm not going to take the credit for that, right? It's flipped because even on the national scene, just the way that the beliefs are here in our community lean more towards that Republican.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's more about conservatism on
Right.
a moral level or a Christian
Yes.
kind of faith type stuff.
But we do have a Democrat governor.
Yes,
So
which is interesting.
the state tends to go red now, right? In a
Yes.
presidential election. But we have a Democrat
Interesting.
governor.
And
And he's
is that
actually
because the
and he's
voting
actually
populace
from
is-
Hopkins. We consider him from Hopkins
Right.
County, right?
Yeah, we claim him
Yeah.
in Hopkins County because his father was from Dawson Springs.
Dawson.
And
Springs, yeah.
why would you say that was? Because the voting populace is city-centered, or is it urban?
I think that in the beginning, his first term, I feel like it's because he was the better candidate of the two candidates. That's what I think the voters felt like.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessarily that they were voting for him.
Right.
They-
or a party.
Right.
Party. Okay. It was more like
But
the
a
person.
A
It was
person.
more the person.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I feel like the second round, if you look across the state, he won because of the Golden Triangle, which is Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green.
Mm-hmm.
Those larger cities still have that makeup of more lean toward
Partisan.
the left versus the right.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much everywhere else, he lost. To
Would the
Republican.
Democrats, this is such a rabbit trail, but would the Democrats in Kentucky be less about, is it a historic loyalty, or is it about labor, or is it, what is that?
I think it's personal conviction. I mean, here's the thing: the decisions that we make in the city of Madisonville have no partisan decisions, right? I mean, we're not out trying to beat the right or beat the left. We're looking to improve the community as a whole.
What's
We're
better
not
for the city, for
right.
the people.
But on the state level,
Well, I think let me ask you like this, Mayor. So when our parents and grandparents were alive, and coal was alive and well throughout a large portion of the state, both eastern and western Kentucky,
that was a Democratic
and
issue.
unions
Yeah.
were
Mm-hmm.
very,
Huge,
very
yes.
much important to the lifestyle of those families. that was, I think, would
So
you
it's more
say
of a
that's the
legacy.
baseline of the Democratic Party?
I would think so. And then, even when I was 18 and registering to vote, my father told me, you have to register Democrat. If you want to vote, you have to register Democrat. And it wasn't until I was an adult and married that I recognized that, what,
Not necessarily aligned with all that.
I wasn't
right?
aligned with the same beliefs.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to change my party to a Republican.
So I interrupted you.
So
You
before,
want me to do it again?
Yeah.
You want me to do it again?
You will. You
Want me
will.
to do it again?
Yeah, you will. So tell us before we get a little too far down this, what was that moment like where it just clicked for you as like, I want to serve in this capacity, or I want to run for mayor? How would you tell our audience, how did that come to be in your mind, that I can make a difference in this way?
Well, I know this is kind of outside the box, right?
Sure.
But just hearing the constant opportunities, seeing the constant opportunities, and recognizing that maybe I could do something, maybe I could do more.
Yeah.
And I'm not the typical mayor, and hopefully we'll get into that a little bit later. But I had this young lady that goes to Lighthouse Pentecostal Church. She's not there any longer; she's moved off. But her name was Taylor, and she was that individual that had a true prayer closet.
Mm.
And I told her, I said, I really feel like that this is where I'm leaning, and this is, what I feel like the Lord wants me to do, but I need some clarity. Like if I'm going to do this, I need to know that this is what He wants for me. And I don't know what we can and can't talk about on this podcast, but I'm just telling
Nothing's
you. Right?
off
You're
limits.
asking.
Yeah, you're good. You're
You asked me if anything was off limits, and
you're good.
I'm going
I'm
for it,
loving
right?
Yeah.
But I brought her in and I said, listen, I understand the value in intercessory prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And what I need to know that this is truly the Lord talking, right? I need to know that, so I need some clarity. And she started praying, and it was probably a week or so later that she came to me, and I just knew, like I knew already. And she came to me and she said, I hope that the Lord has answered your prayers. And it was just like, wow.
Mm.
And then right after the campaign started, there was some negative that was put out, and that was baseless, right? And that particular church started praying for me when that was immediately, as soon as it came out. And this is going to sound strange, but I feel like you all can understand it. It felt like a blanket was laid over top of me, and I was protected, and I knew that the Lord had all of that in His hands.
Wow.
Like it wasn't. So I knew then that this is what the Lord wants. He's got me. He's protecting me. He's going to open the doors that need to be open. He's going to close the doors that need to be closed, and we're going to do the best that we can, and we'll stay as long as the community sees that we're making progress and an impact.
I think I saw a little emotion when you went through that discussion right then. It's like you're feeling that.
I can. Like, I mean, it's there.
Yeah, that's
So-
awesome. Well, let's talk about some really big wins that you've had as mayor. I mean, I know there's some things on my list that I feel like you've done an excellent job on that have been really big wins. But if you had to say your top two, what are your top two feathers right now that you're like, hey, this really
Feels
makes
good.
me happy that we've been able to pull this off as a community?
Wow, that's big. That's a tall. That wasn't on my list. That's a tall question because there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of things that we've seen happen in the past 6 years that we can be extremely proud of. But I think one of the biggest ones for me is watching the team within the city. We have 362 employees, give or take. And watching the team and the culture and within the city employees shift, right? And now it's positive. It's pride in what they're doing. They're passionate about their jobs. They want to make sure that when they do it, that they do it to the best of their abilities. And I think that watching from the inside and watching that happen, I had three things that I did when I first took office. One of those was they were all book related, and I don't read books. I have a learning disability. There's some challenges for me, but but there were 3 books that really impacted my life, other than the Bible, of course. But one of them was called the Energy Bus book. And it's a real simple read. It's a simple book, but it talks about the bus, and it talks about being on the right seat on the bus and having the right driver on the bus.
Yeah, it's all good stuff.
and you have to recognize who needs to be where. And in some cases, they need to recognize they're on the wrong bus, right? Yes. It's not that they've done anything wrong, or it's just not going to fit, right? It doesn't work right. And that happens. So I gave each of our department heads the Energy Bus book. And this was my first meeting with them. And I said, this is how we're looking at moving forward. We have to understand that the city is a bus. Like we're moving forward. We're going to do some great things. And in order for us to do that, we have to have the right people in the right seats. The second one was the Ideal Team Player book. And that book was a little harder of a read for me because it gets into some details.
That's a Lencioni book too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that book really talks about being hungry, humble, and smart. So when you're hiring people in those positions of leadership, you need to be recognizing who you're putting in that position.
Absolutely.
So all of our hiring now, we use an interview format that we've taken parts and pieces from that book. So humble is being, putting others before yourself. Hungry is giving 110%, even when nobody else is looking. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, we can give 110% when we think we're going to get a promotion but when it's not promotion time and when it's outside of what everybody else is seeing, and then smart, being able to work with all different types of personalities and people.
Oh, smart as in relationally smart.
Relationally
EQ,
smart.
Yeah.
So it was incredible to watch this happen. And then my all-time favorite book, because I have a learning disability, is the Flower Man book.
Wow.
And it's because there's no words in it. Right? So I get asked often, what do you want your legacy to be? And I've struggled with that. Like I'm not going to lie. Most people want their legacy to be based off of something that they've, one single thing that they've done, an accomplishment, like the sports complex or the sewer project or the shopping centers and retail development and housing development. But for me, it really circles around this book. And I want to make sure that when I leave this office, that this city operates in its own abilities to continue to be successful and progressive and supply the needs in the community. Yeah. So my number one, I think, would be the team culture and seeing that shift. That it's not we're working against you and you're working against us. Now we're all working together.
Yeah.
Okay, you baited me though with the Flower Man. You got to give me at least the thumbnail of this story, right?
Well, we're 22 minutes in.
Oh,
so, so the Flower Man book, it talks about, and you're not going to be able to see this on the camera, but you'll be able to see it in here. Mark Ludy is an amazing
you might be surprised.
author.
Show it to that camera. That camera pointed.
So if you look at the book, you'll notice that the community, the area that he's walking into is
dark and depressed.
Dark and depressed. It's desolate. It's run down. But if you see him,
he has light.
He has light, right? So as he's walking into the community, the lights are coming on around him. So he's bringing that energy into the town.
Where's this book been my whole life?
I know it, man. That's awesome.
It's been hiding on my desk.
Yeah, man.
I can't let everybody know about it.
Right.
So
they're going to now.
I'm sending copies of this to some people.
So this is so the Flower Man walks in and finds a house that's for sale. All right. So when you look at that house, what do you notice about the house?
Yeah, it's broken down, needy.
Broken down. It needs to be repaired.
I noticed that the sidewalk's lighting up like on Billie Jean. So him and Michael Jackson have something
in common. Yeah. So, but if you look at the Flower Man, you'll notice he doesn't fit. Like he doesn't fit within the community.
Right.
Right. He looks different. He looks like he may be somebody that's homeless or somebody that's not going to be able to produce much. And if you look in the alleyway, there's a homeless man laying down here in the bottom. And that's extremely important when we go through the book. But everybody in the book has a story. It's a different story. So when you're looking at the community, everybody has a different outlook, right? I mean, you see it on social media all the time. There's so many different opinions, but so he finds this house that needs a lot of work. So he starts doing the work, right?
Everything's lightening up.
So it's lightening up,
turning into day.
But if
got some color too.
If you watch the people around him, they're not happy. Like they're still depressed. They haven't bought into it yet, right? So, but he doesn't quit. He keeps on working on this house. And then he decides he's going to plant some flowers and spruce it up a little bit. But he doesn't stop there, right? He shares that, and it shares it with this young lady that's walking away. Somebody was just walking by the house that he was able to give that flower to, right? What happens to her in the book?
Yep. She turns into color.
She automatically turns into color. What do you notice about the homeless man that's over here? Is he laying in the alleyway anymore?
No, not anymore.
No. If you look at the neighbors next door, however, they are miserable. Like they are not liking this at all. And we see that, right? We have what's called the STPs, the same 10 people.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, they're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
They're just not. But you can't give up on them. So he just continues and she continues, and they start sharing those flowers all throughout town. And the color starts doing what?
Growing, spreading.
It starts spreading all throughout the community. And every one of the stories are starting to change.
Yeah.
Right? So there's some positiveness, some positive energy that's coming into the book. But what happens to the neighbors?
They're moving.
They're moving out.
Oh, wow.
They don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
They are leaving.
Yeah.
They're not going to have any of it. They don't want to be a part of it. And that's okay, right? I mean, that's their choice.
They need to find another gray place.
You have to find a different seat on a bus or a different bus, right? So, but because of that, now when you look at it, where's the homeless man now? The homeless man has an opportunity for a home right next door to the flower man. But if you pay real close attention to the homeless man, he's missing a what?
Oh, his leg.
He's disabled. So it's not just that he was homeless, laying in the gutter in between the alley, but he's disabled.
He had a challenge, yeah.
Why was he disabled? You're not going to see this on there, but what's he got on his chest?
A war medal, probably.
Yeah, medals.
He's got war medals.
Yeah.
He was a disabled veteran.
Wow, he's a veteran. Wow.
So they were able to work with him and get him what he needed.
Yeah.
So as the story continues, he recognizes that now things are solid. It's continuing. He's done what he needs to do, and now he's going to move on. So as he moves on, does the town get dark, or does it stay full of energy? Does it stay in color?
Same light.
The lights stay on. The people are happy. But he finds another place, and what do you notice about the area that he moves into?
Same as the other one.
Same as the other, right?
Incarnation.
What do you notice next door?
Was that the neighbor?
It's the same neighbors that he had before.
I knew it.
He doesn't give up.
Yeah.
And by not giving up even on them, he's able to share that energy and positivity.
Man.
That's what I want my legacy to be.
What a great
I want to make sure that I can share this story with as many people as possible. I want them to find themselves on these pages.
Yes.
Because I feel like that if they can find themselves on these pages, they can see that there is an opportunity.
Yeah, I was just having this, you know how there's a lot of funding in cities, and I've seen some really goofy ideas for what is art. You know, we're going to put art all over the city. You know, put like pigs that are got polka dots on them.
Or horses
something kind of goofy. I mean, and I'm like, wow, I wonder how much money went into that.
Mm-hmm. How would you?
Flowers would work.
Flowers, yep.
Yeah.
So if you go downtown, you'll see flowers on all of our.
Yeah, I mean, like that push would work because, you know, it has.
Oh, flowers
they flourish.
lift your
Flowers
spirit.
flourish.
Well, it's a sign of flourishing.
Yes.
So if someone was listening today and they're like, man, that just inspired me, I want to give more light. How would you encourage someone to just offer more light? Like, what would be a tip or a way that they could take a next step in that?
Don't be scared to take the step. Right? I mean, fear is what holds us back a lot of times. And for me, I'm not that strongest guy that's out there.
Sure.
Right? I'm in school. I struggled, and I wasn't the person that was able to be that popular guy. Right? That wasn't me. I was never that person.
Yeah. Not all of us can be Cliff.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a good thing.
I mean, it's
well, that is a good thing.
I mean, at least we're aware of it. At least we're aware of it.
Everybody has a seat on the bus.
There's a place.
Some people on the back of the bus.
Unless it's my bus, and then it's just me.
And it's just him.
Yeah, his bus has one seat.
Yeah. So, but I think that's what
It's a toilet seat. But anyway,
yeah, that's good. I like it. I like these guys.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Oh, yeah, we're going to give it to Cliff.
I thought for sure I was going to have to suffer through an hour with Cliff.
No.
But, excuse me.
What is this?
What are you doing?
Eddie back there. That looks like.
oh man,
Look at that.
That's not going
You
up
can't tell
on
me
the
that guy
podcast,
wasn't
is it?
popular with
I
that.
think
cookie
that's
duster.
yeah.
You had that cookie duster going there.
Yeah. So, like I said, I wasn't the popular kid, right? So,
I think Amy gave him that. She's sitting back there.
she probably did.
Yeah.
But I am. I would just say, don't be scared to go do it.
Yeah.
You know, take that risk.
Take a
Not
step.
everybody's a risk taker, but being in business and then having the different careers that I've had over my life, the Lord just allowed me to understand what that risks look like. And I can't really explain the gift that He's given me and being able to see a vision and understand what it's going to look like on the other side, where other folks may not understand what it's going to look like. I'm not a detail person, so I've not found the mouse on every page of the flyer. Man, my ADD kicks in, and I'm trying to chase everything else. But I can see the vision, and then having a team of people around me that can put the details in place to make everything work. That's why we're being successful with what we're doing. It's not one person. It's not one administration. It's all of us that are working together. You know, the city, the county, the chamber, the EDC. Like right now, we are finally working as a unified front.
Wonderful.
Which is why we're where we're at.
What I'm hearing is that one-seated bus is not the way to go.
No, and one day he's going to learn it.
It just
One
depends.
day.
One day
it's
he's
the
gonna
problem
learn
of
it.
being an only
So
child.
talk about
bus
toilet
implies
seats.
more
Tell me about that
seats,
sewer
Cliff.
project for real. What was the big deal? Was there a
The shitter
problem
was
here?
full. The shitter was full.
Ultimately, it was full. So
What?
when you
No, you just flush. That's all.
well,
it
it
is.
sounds good in theory.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, even out in the country, when your septic tank gets full, you have to pump it out, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the city of Madisonville, and you can picture it as a bathtub. So you've got a drain on one end of the bathtub. That drain is over by our mall. And that's where all the infrastructure was pointed in that direction. Because at one point, that was where our sewer plant was. And then many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, they built a new plant. And now we pump that same sewer out 5-6 miles across country out to AC Slayton Road. So the challenge with that is our growth that we have in the community is exceeding the sewer capacity at the mall.
So it's having to be pumped.
So we
or
can't pump it fast
continuously.
enough. So what's happening is if we have a big rain event that happens, then we end up with an
Stormwater.
overflow. Because you have failing infrastructure everywhere in every community. And so by having that old infrastructure, you have water leakage that comes in from the groundwater into the sewer system. We're working on that. We're trying to get that resolved as quick as possible. But ultimately, unless we did the sewer project that we're doing right now, we would have been stagnant. Like we couldn't grow anymore.
So are you doing another plant or expanding the one you have?
We're expanding what we have, and we're putting in a sewer line that's called the West Knoll Interceptor, and that will take the sewer. And once it's fully complete, it will take the sewer from the hospital and that area, and then which is one of our largest users, as well as
And divert
Ostrom.
it from the mall.
Correct. So that will not go to the mall anymore. That will start to turn
that'll
and
help.
go down the West Knoll.
And so that capacity, taking that capacity away, allows the mall thing to be pumped and
Yes, and
still
then we
have
can
a
grow.
line.
So our kids and grandkids aren't going to have to worry about what they're going to do for sewer.
Yeah.
So it sets it up for like the next 50 years.
Yeah. What kind of money are we talking about?
It's about $25 million, the total project.
That'll
so
give you pause, won't it?
It will, and it
What's the
started
total
off
city budget, just to give some?
100. I think we were around 110 million this
it's
year
nearly.
So pushing 25%
of the total budget.
of the total budget.
But I think what you got to understand about the city budget is that we have our own electricity, we have our own water, and we have our own sewer. So you take those pieces out, and then our budget's much smaller, right? So, but it is it's a critical piece of infrastructure that we have to do something about.
Yes.
When they first started talking about the project was even before I came into office, and at that time they were estimated to be somewhere between $4 and $6 million. Once we got into the project and recognized that we were going to have to do a little bit more work than what was originally planned, they gave us some new estimates, and they missed a zero on one of the estimates.
Yeah.
So
that's convenient.
Instead of $6.5 million, they put in $650,000 on one of the pieces of the project. And then COVID hits, right? Everything escalates, and then now we're sitting on what really probably should have been about a $10 to $12 million project. Now is $25 million.
Do you have to buy property and easements?
We had a few easements that we had to take care of. That's not a very expensive
aspect
item.
of it. Yeah.
The great thing is most of it was on farmland.
And can you raise bonds, or how do you raise those funds? Because you can't pull them from a one-year budget.
Right. No, we did the bond for this particular project. We did it in 2 separate bonds, and we may end up with a third bond.
And it's just passed along a property tax?
No, actually, our property tax just decreased. We have one of the lowest property taxes in the state.
So you raise the bond and just pay it out of the budget?
You pay it out of the sewer fees that you're having to charge for water and sewer rates. So, and that was another big issue because water and sewer rates hadn't been touched in 18 years for one of them and 20 years for the other.
Oh,
there was no increases.
They have to go up, yeah.
Yeah.
So they wasn't tied to the cost of living index. They wasn't tied to just the cost of doing business. They weren't tied to anything. They just didn't raise them. And so you can't operate that way, which is why we were having a lot of issues with groundwater getting into the system. Mm-hmm. The main water lines were 40 years old. We had a water tower that wasn't even in operation.
You provide your own water?
We do, yeah. About 1.5, 1.6 billion gallons a year is what we filter out of the Lake Pee Wee area for our system. And then we also, the sewer treatment side, because of the I&I, we're about 1.8 billion.
So is the infrastructure of the rest of the city infrastructure? I mean, there's so much to think about. Roads.
Yes.
I mean, is that kind of like the elephant in the room type?
It is. The biggest one you hear about streets, right? Everybody wants their street paved.
Yep.
And the reality is you can't do it all. For years, the only money that was put into the infrastructure in the streets was that was coming in from the state through what's called municipal aid funds, and that's the gas tax. The state collects it, and then they send back portions to each community. So they were spending $200,000, $300,000.
That doesn't go very far.
It didn't go anywhere. Yeah. You're doing 4, maybe 5 streets. So
that was my biggest complaint before you came in. Just for the record, I give you kudos on the sidewalks, streets, general infrastructure. You may not always get it right, and some people are going to say that, but the reality is the improvements that are being made are necessary, and I appreciate your attention on that.
How do you prioritize what gets focused on?
So thankfully, we have a city engineer that's very forward thinking, and he was able to find some software that we could put and attach some sensors to the bottom of city vehicles that would rate and grade the city streets.
That's awesome.
And it tracks, like every single day they're on these streets, right? So it's tracking the condition of those streets.
Wow.
And then that's what's prioritizing what gets done. Yes. Correct. Right.
Yeah.
That's not the case. Has that ever happened before? Probably.
Sure,
I'm sure it
sure.
has.
Well, sure.
I appreciate those sidewalks in front of you.
But we've been able to really dial it into what the true need is. And that's not popular with everybody, right? So, but I didn't take the position to be popular. I took the position to do I ran for the position. I didn't take the position. I ran for the position so that we could do what's right for the community.
Yeah. Deferred maintenance is never a sexy idea to fix. It's always the.
This year, and this is one of the challenges that we have in the community is our occupational tax. So we do have one of the higher occupational taxes in the state. but we have the lowest property tax, right? So if you're a citizen and you own property in the city limits of Madisonville, you're paying, I think it's like 0.105, like it's a super low number at this point. And we just reduced them again. But that occupational tax is obtained because everybody that works within the city is utilizing the city streets. They're using the sidewalks. They're dialing 911 for police protection, fire protection. They're using the trash services.
Got to pay to play.
They're enjoying the parks and recreation that we have here in the community. So the council made a decision to increase that occupational tax. We took a little bit of a hit for that. That was actually during an election year too. So they raised that, the water and the sewer all at the same time. But in order to do what needs to be done in the community, we have to. We can't not have the revenue to be able to put in what we need
I thought
to.
for a second there Freddie was going to get you.
We had some opposition.
Close calls. Yeah.
I'm thankful that the Lord has given me, and this community has given me another opportunity to continue to serve.
So the big roads that run through Madisonville, I'm sorry to dial down on the details.
Well,
those
are state highways.
Maybe I'm taking
mainly.
it too far.
Yeah, let's jump off to something else because we're going to run up against time here.
I
love
like talking
this
about
stuff.
streets.
Thanks, Cliff. I appreciate it.
No,
We're putting $1.4 million in this year. Just to give you an idea of, you're asking that question. We went from 300,000 to 1.4 million.
Yeah.
So,
It's all right.
and once we can get Cliff to move all of his offices in the city, we'll get some more.
Yeah,
they are coming to the city.
I know. I saw
Yeah,
that.
that's
Is the
right.
city coming to you, or are you coming to the city?
I'm coming to the city.
I'm excited too.
Incarnational.
He
bring
asked-
some light. Bring some light.
Yes, I'm trying
Bring
to
some
bring
flowers.
trying to be the flower
He's
man.
trying to be the
Bring
flower
some
man.
light. Bring some flowers.
All right, so I want to talk about something that I think is positive, but somehow has brought you a little bit of heat, is where we're doing all of the outdoor activities. And we're taking, how much money do we get in the restaurant tax a year?
A couple million dollars is what
Yeah.
we bring into the restaurant tax.
Yeah. And just to be clear for listeners, so you're the mayor, but you're also a restaurant owner.
Yes.
I'm a restaurant owner. So what happens is customers, patrons come in from, it doesn't matter where you live. If you come in, you're paying a restaurant tax. And what's the rate on that?
3%.
3% of any bill. Does that exclude alcohol? I can't remember.
I think it does exclude
I think it
alcohol.
does
Because
exclude-
alcohol has its own fee.
Has its own fee.
And it's what, 4%?
Something like that, yeah. And so by doing that, we were able to go from zero collection on these restaurant taxes to right at $2 million. And so your current administration is using, just kind of give a real quick outlay to where that is and
gosh.
where some of the,
Quick, can we have 2 hours?
No,
So wait, they were taxed on just property tax?
no,
before, or-
I'm saying you as the patron are taxed.
Oh,
So if you come in
so-
my
okay.
restaurant, you're going to pay an extra.
so it's not the
3%.
owner, yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's not the owner at all.
So those funds, we've been able to dial those in a little bit and focus on community events and city tourism infrastructure. So Mar Park Arboretum is a prime example of that. We've been able to go in and put in the natural playground, the nature play area. We've been able to put in,
And we're talking first class. We're not talking. I mean, it is.
Is this near downtown type
no,
stuff?
this is just right over the hill here.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
265 acres was left to the city. So being able to take those dollars, we've been able to do the nature play area. We've been able to put in the barn A for the wedding venue.
Oh yeah.
Which is a very beautiful. It was just a mechanics. They had their tractors in the barn.
Let's run through there tonight on the way to dinner. You guys need to see it. It's
And
I'd love
then
to
barn
see
B is an outdoor venue. But we've been able to take those funds as well and leverage them to put in a 92,000 square foot indoor sports complex. So a partnership with the county and the city, we were able to do, I think it's right at 16 million for the complex. But
That's
it's
pretty cheap, actually.
It is cheap because if you were going to do it today, it'd be closer to 24 million.
Yeah, because that's like, what, $175 a square foot? That's cheap.
We started the process back in 2019. And
that
then we
helped,
were
yeah.
able to,
You
Get
were
some
ahead.
of it in before
hopefully
COVID.
we're going to have it open by the first of the year. But some other things, we do a lot of city events, that's what I take a lot of heat for. But we spend about $800,000 a year on events for the city. It's not for the local community, which is, I think, a big misperception.
Mm-hmm.
Those events are to bring people in from outside. So we need people to drive in here and buy gas and buy food and stop at our stores. And but that $800,000 turns into an economic impact of around $3 million. So when you're looking at
like
a return
the restaurant
on your money,
tax, gas,
the restaurant tax is
money back to owners
it,
and restaurants.
Yeah, so like the big venues that we had, who was the performer this year?
We had Roots and Boots, which was Aaron Tippin, Colin Ray, and Sammy Kershaw. We had Kane, and who was the other one?
I didn't go, so I don't participate.
We've had for King of Country. We had Charlie Daniels. So the last 4th of July concert that he ever did.
Did we have
was
Vanilla
here.
Ice?
We had Vanilla Ice.
In Vogue.
Sister Sledge, War. We've had some really cool acts come in because of the funds that we've been able to utilize. But I mean, we do more, right? We had a hot air balloon show that just happened. I got a lot of flack over that because parking, I mean, it wasn't parking, it was traffic. So we had traffic backed up, and you see it when you go out there. It was backed up from the kayak launch at the lake all the way to I-69. You couldn't get in the park.
Wow.
That's a good problem.
You're talking about close to 5 miles of traffic.
Yes. And it was
one single line.
Yes.
Parking lot.
And we were expecting 5,000, maybe 6,000 people. We had over 10,000 people in the park. There were over 2,700 cars just parked inside the parking of the park.
Love it.
The most we've ever had at Mar Park. Now that park does see about 619,000 visitors a year.
What?
That's the traffic count that we're.
What do you think
the
dollar impact of that was? That one event.
That one event we just did
200,000, 250,000,
190,000 is what we used a
90
state
or 190.
190,000.
I was going to say 200.
So what was the complaint? Because I'm an outsider. What was the complaint about such a successful event?
We should have been better prepared for the traffic. Like we didn't plan good enough because we had too much traffic. Well, I mean, what's happening is we're getting recognized in the region for the events that we're having because they're really good, solid events, and they're well done. So because of that, we're getting people to drive in from Indiana, from Illinois, from Missouri, from
so you need
Tennessee.
someplace that parks 3,000 cars in a field with some gravel.
So I want to ask you a question that got asked to me, and they were like, "We know you're friends with Kevin," and I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that I'm necessarily opposed to it, but like, why would we not take some of that money and build, say, like an amphitheater like Beaver Dam has? And instead of it being free, not that Sammy Kershaw and Vanilla Ice are not awesome, but maybe we have somebody a little more current and then actually sell tickets for it. What's the thought on something like that?
So the interesting thing about that is that those discussions are going on right now. So even last night at the tourism committee, some of those discussions were had. We went and visited an amphitheater in Alabama at their sports complex. And just for a point of reference, an amphitheater cost is going to be somewhere around $7 to $8 million to put in.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why we don't have one, right?
Well, and it's good to know that because some people, I think, you look at an amphitheater
and they think it's going to be
you're
simple,
like, well,
right?
this will be a cheap investment. But there's a lot of stuff that's behind that.
Correct.
That behind the curtain, so
behind
to speak.
the curtain.
And then you have the maintenance.
Not as cheap as you assume.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even the one in Beaver Dam was probably pushing $3 to $4 million when they built it. So to build that same one today, that was way pre-COVID.
3 times that.
Double.
So you're going to double it.
Double plus,
And so I think that there's some temperature for the paid opportunities. You just have to balance that because, when the community feels like we're going to take something away, they go nuts, right? And it's not that we're wanting to take something away, we're wanting to enhance it.
Yeah.
So I do think you'll see them maybe next year look at the opportunity to reduce Fourth Fest down to a 2-day event. This is just theoretical.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm just talking. Yeah.
But I think that you'll see, I'm leaving it to the tourism committee to make these decisions because that's what they're there for.
You want to say that again on record?
Yeah.
You're what?
I'm leaving it to the tourism committee to make those decisions.
Sure.
Because it's their responsibility as a board to determine how we use those funds.
Absolutely.
And then those funds are sent to the council, and the council makes the final approval. But once they approve it, then we're going to make it happen. But I do think that you may see them reduce that festival to a 2-day event, make it a little bigger acts on the 2 days, and then do a one-off event that's a paid event, maybe at the fairgrounds or something like that, where you can get 4,000, 4,500 people in at a paid event. I think that you'll see some things like that happening. But I mean, we've had some incredible success because of the events. We've been able to promote Madisonville. When we go to do some retail recruitment, manufacturing recruitment, physician recruitment, all of those quality of life pieces come into play that we didn't have back in 2019. So, and again, it's just been a team working together to get all of those things into place. It's not one person. It's not one entity. It's all of us working together.
And it's almost a 1-for-1, right? You put it back into the community, you get it back.
You're going to get it back.
Right?
So, Kevin, since you've been in office talking about some growth things, we've seen Berry Plastics continue to grow.
Yeah.
We've seen Clark become one of the largest distribution centers on the Eastern Seaboard, restaurant-wise, right?
Yes.
Restaurant equipment. We're finally, with the 21st century, we have a Starbucks.
We do have a Starbucks.
We have a Starbucks.
But that was my fault too. All the traffic for Starbucks, that was my fault too.
Yeah, of course.
Don't go to Starbucks right now. It's brand new.
It's brand new.
Yeah.
Give it a week.
And if you do, and it's a long line, blame Kevin.
Just blame me.
He is a Republican after all.
Doing mobile ordering, walking and picking
and we
up.
got a Dunkin' Donuts coming.
Yeah, it opens Thursday morning.
We've probably had a few more Mexican restaurants open.
We've had several Mexican restaurants open
during your tenure. So
we're getting a police academy.
The police academy. Yeah, that's another big
that'll
one.
be a big announcement that's coming on Thursday. The governor is going to do a press conference for that in Frankfurt on Thursday. So we'll be joining him for that. That was the work of everybody, coming together and fighting for it. That's going to impact law enforcement all across the state.
What does that do economically? I mean,
so I don't know that we necessarily have the economic impact numbers for that yet. But what it does do is right now the city, any city or county has to send their officers to Richmond, Kentucky for their training. And it's a 20-week training course, but it's a 7-month wait time before you can even get a slot.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're going to reduce that down to hopefully to where it's about a 30 to 45 day wait time to get in.
And that makes us only the second.
Yeah, we'll be the second. And
so there's a lot of people, they're spending money at your restaurants, hanging out, hotels, blah, blah, blah.
It has some definite intrinsic value for sure.
Yeah.
And it might not be in largest scale as like event where you have 10,000 people, but it's going to be consistent.
Steady.
Yeah.
And then we just announced the new power plant coming in. That's part of our power purchasing.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Group.
Yeah.
So
that was just what?
Yeah.
60
like a coal
days ago.
plant, gas. What?
It'd be natural gas. It's going to be it'll be a 75 megawatt net plant. So and it will be able to fire up within minutes. So
those are expensive to build.
It's the total project's $180 million, but the plant itself is $130 million.
And where is that going? When I saw the announcement, I had trouble.
It's going to go out by the sewer plant.
Oh, okay.
So
that's why
off of AC Slayton Road, and
they have to have water, don't they? Too.
Yeah, water, sewer.
There's not a coal backup or anything. It's all gas.
It's all natural gas. So we're excited about that. That's going to allow us. We haven't had a power rate increase in the city of Madisonville my entire time being in office. And right now we're not projected to have one for the next 2 years. So by having our own power generation for the organization, so there's 8 different cities that's involved. I know we're getting close to time, but those entities right now we're buying on the open market. Well, if you look at the volatility of what that energy looks like over the next 10 and 15 years,
it'd be nice to be serving it
oh
yourself.
My gosh, yeah. We need to have access to our own power. Because we're buying from agencies right now that are having those rolling brownouts and blackouts. And then you just look at what happened back in the winter when we got into those single-digit temperatures here.
Yeah, it was through the roof.
So we had several blackouts. We need to be making sure that we're providing for our cities and our agency as a whole. But that's going to allow us to keep our power costs down. And then we just, I think it goes online this month or first part of next month, an 86 megawatt solar farm. Over in the Fredonia area.
Okay.
And it's called Ashwood Solar, which is going to allow some of our companies to go to a carbon neutral facilities.
Now,
So,
can companies buy electricity from them, or how is that
yeah,
working?
so we're going to have credits that are going to be available. We have one plant that's already reached out to us, and they want to go completely carbon neutral. So we're going to be able to make that happen through that Ashwood Solar Farm.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of coming up on time, and I have kind of torn on two things I wanted to talk about.
I'll make it quick for both of them. I got 6 minutes.
No.
I'm pretty speedy. I'm fast.
you got all the time in the world, brother. Is it true that with our
if you have to start with that in the beginning, is it true? It's probably not, but go ahead.
Is it true that our ambulance service is that a standalone company, and is that contracted through the city?
It is not contracted to the city. There is a contract with the county. They are their own entity that is ran by a board. However, they go under the umbrella of Baptist Health for their employees and their benefits package. So Baptist Health, they're that managing partner, if you will.
Okay.
And the board of directors are made up a lot of the Baptist Health organization, and then a few community members.
Okay.
And then Jack Whitfield is a part of that as well. So the county puts money into the ambulance service.
You have no power to affect it.
So just a question. This is my question, nobody else's. Why would we not align that with like the fire department?
Were you looking for the hot buttons, or so I started this conversation earlier in the year with trying to partner up with the local ambulance service. They were really struggling with finding the staff necessary to staff it up that they needed, and it's a business, right? So they have to have the revenue in order to pay for their expenses. And there's a lot of challenges that go along with that. So we started the conversation with the chair of the board of directors for the hospital, or for the board of directors for the ambulance service, to try to see, there's two options or three options really. One, we could start our own, right? We could have our own ambulance running out of the fire stations, and that's happening in other communities. But if we do that, we're taking that 911 call, which is really the bread and butter of where the ambulance service makes the most revenue. So we didn't want to cannibalize the ambulance service.
Why not?
Because then they're not going to be able to operate to provide the service to the rest of the county. They do a lot of BLS transfers. They do a lot of out-of-town transfers. They do the ALS service for the entire county, not just the city limits of Madisonville. So
And we couldn't do that?
Well, our conversation was the next option is that we could bring the ambulance service into the city as another department, just like what we have with water, sewer, power, parks. We would bring them in as a standalone department within the city. And then we could offer better pay, better benefits, and some enhanced working conditions. And then that kind of fell flat, and it ruffled a lot of feathers within the organization of the ambulance service that we were trying to do a takeover, right? But the conversation started with somebody at the ambulance service saying, we've tried to get the county to take us in for the benefits and for the enhancement of the services. However, the county's not able to do it. And we wouldn't be opposed to the city. Well, when we started the conversations, it was a different conversation because the managing partner is actually Baptist Health. So they actually have the control over what the ambulance service is doing. And I was unaware of all of those moving pieces. Otherwise, I would have started with Baptist Health first, and then I would have went to the ambulance service. But I went straight to the ambulance service because that's where the conversation started.
Well, I just want to say, as a citizen of this community, that it seems less than efficient, and it's good to hear that it's being talked about. But
yes.
I've got some construction going on my home right now. We have fire departments that are strategically located,
yes,
where they can respond in a very fast manner. A couple weeks ago, one of the workers here had a stroke in my house.
Mm-hmm.
The fire department was here in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
and they were having to try to keep this gentleman aware, alert, work with their limited resources for 20 minutes before the ambulance got here. And in a critical situation,
it's too long.
That's a century.
It's a dead man.
And so I think as concerned citizens, that's something that whatever you can do, we need to support you on. And I don't want to see, I don't want to see whatever that business is. And just because it ruffles their feathers, I don't think that should stop us from finding the right solution.
Right. So what happened, that final piece of the three options, that final piece was that they could correct it and hire the staff that they needed, put an additional truck on, and then that would enhance our call times. They did that for a period of time, and it really helped. We were seeing better response times. The challenge is the hospital still transfers a lot of patients out to Evansville or Louisville or Nashville. So once that ambulance leaves, they've got to find another unit to come in, and they don't have enough staff to be able to pull that off. So they're limited with what they can do, which is why we felt like, hey, we could help here by bringing this into the fire department, even if we're running a BLS truck, because most all of our firefighters, not 100%, but most all of our firefighters, probably in that 90 percentile, are emergency medical technicians. So they're already trained. They already have that certification.
Yep.
So they did make some efforts to improve that. We've seen that as far as a whole. I think that they were able to give some pay raises. They were able to buy some equipment. They were able to do some additional hiring for that other truck. But it is that's a challenge. I don't know that we're done with the conversations. We've kind of just let it, let's see where it goes, and then we'll reevaluate it in January, because we wanted to make sure that we gave them every opportunity to do what was right. But other cities have been successful in making that happen.
If you need somebody on that committee, you just give me a call. I'll be your
to have you
huckleberry.
on a committee.
I'll be your huckleberry.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it might equate to your last term. So I don't know if I'd recommend it. So want to just kind of end with this. We'll take another 5-10 minutes here. When it comes to waste management, I think with Tunco, most people know that we're a recycling company. And one of the things that I have recently learned, Jennifer Betts hasn't been a part of this podcast yet, but she's a big impetus behind this even being a podcast. And I've recently learned that the federal and state governments see recycling and waste as two different categories.
Yes.
And we learned that there is significantly more money in line for waste than there is recycling. The
Government money, grant money.
Yeah, both at the federal and the state level. The general consensus behind that is because when it comes to metals recycling, so we could be talking about iron, tin, nickel, copper, aluminum cans, all of that stuff, that has been going on for decades, and it is really operating at peak performance. So they're not throwing a lot of finance that direction. But on the waste stream side, there is. But the problem within the waste, so we've got a cardboard recycling facility, is that the technology to be able to separate, just think about everything you throw in a trash bag. It's not easy. It doesn't have to necessarily be complicated and not doable, but it's definitely complex. So one of the things I think is just worth having a discussion here, because we have had some rate increases and different things, is what are the challenges that we're facing as a city, as a county, or a series of counties, and how can we tackle that problem efficiently and effectively?
So that's a good question. And you and I have had some conversations about this, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yep.
There is some challenges on the recycle piece for us. When the recycle piece was put into place, we had a sorting line. We were able to use inmate labor for that. During COVID, that all shut down. We were unable to get any of that inmate labor. But even at the time that we had the inmate labor, the value of the materials dropped considerably. So you really couldn't get anything out of what you were trying to recycle, right? And so by not having the staff to be able to sort it, you can't pay regular wages for a sorting line. It's just not, it's not going to be cost effective. And so we ended up doing of course we do single stream anyway. But now what we do is we bring that in, we bale that up, we haul it to a recycler, and we're paying $125 a ton to haul that stuff off. Now there is a regional plan for recycling. They're going to put the facility in Princeton, and we will not have to pay for the dump of the material. So we won't have to pay the $125 a ton. They will take the recycling themselves. So our only expense at that point is just the truck, the fuel, the driver to get it down there and back.
Is that a public-private partnership, or has that been landed on yet?
I'm not real sure what the total looks like, how the framework. I've not been a part of that piece of it. I know that there's several communities that are involved in that. We will end up probably being a part of that just simply because if I can take it somewhere for free that's equal to or the same mileage as taking it somewhere I'm paying $125 a ton, it makes sense to just take it and drop it for free.
But the one that's currently in just the landfill that is in Earlington, that's owned by Waste Management, correct?
Yeah, the one that's down in White Plains is Waste Management. Now they're accepting trash from even Nashville, Clarksville. Yep. I mean, they're pulling trash in from everywhere. So that's and as far as I know, they don't have anything in place to separate the waste. Because I know that some of the things that we saw on your side, the videos that I watched, they were bringing the waste in and they were able to sort the waste before it went to the landfill.
Correct.
So they were able to pick parts and pieces out of things that you were taking to the landfill, which is really incredible to be able to do that. But it was a very expensive venture. We saw that number as well. But our recycling, we did just have a meeting with a company that came in that we met during our retail recruitment, which is crazy, right? But we meet all kinds of folks at those retail recruitment events. This one happened to come in and look at our facilities and recognized that there's partnerships that we could make with Pratt Paper for all of our cardboard and white paper, and then also a partnership that we can make with Berry Global on the plastics piece, and that they will come in and help partner up with us to provide some of those pieces of equipment to make that a little more efficient.
Yeah. So that's what, when I was talking to Betts, I think when we circle back and have a conversation, I think there are recycling elements that people are throwing away that could be value add for the city that wouldn't not only cost us money anymore, but would actually potentially put money back in our pockets.
And that's a big deal because, if you look at just the cost of that alone, for us, we have a negotiated rate because we're in Hopkins County and Waste Management gives Hopkins County a discounted rate to dump out at the landfill. But if you were going to go to the landfill and dump on your own, I think it's around $175 a ton. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's about right. Yeah.
So now I think at the city, we're charging you $120 or $125 a ton. Don't hold me to that number. For you to bring your stuff to the city, and then we're loading it up and hauling it down there because we get a discounted rate. And that's been good for the community because we can save them some money, and they're not having to go down there and sit in line for 3 hours to dump their trailer. So they're able to be more productive in what they're doing as a contractor. So, but it's definitely something that's on our radar at this point. And I appreciate you calling us in for that meeting to look at those, and then even showing me that option. The one that was in was it New York that was incredible. And they were just taking the trash that was being dumped, which is what we do now. We bring the trash in, dump it into a barn, and then it's pushed off into a tractor trailer, which is then hauled to the landfill. Well, before they push it off into the trailer, they're sorting it.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through a full process, and then it dumps back into the truck, and then they get whatever's left gets hauled off to the
Yeah, and they've got robots that are picking out all of the valuables.
It's impressive. And it's got some air pieces that go to it that will navigate it as well. It was pretty cool.
To your point about that being an expensive venture, what I would like us to consider is trying to find the data points of what do we feel like the total collection is. And then between the state and the federal funding, I think if we could come up with the right plan, we might be able to get something that's attainable, not through us paying for it as a city, but through state and federal funding potentially.
Don't hold it to me, but I'm pretty sure that our most recent State of the City County address, we talked about almost 50 million pounds of waste.
That's a lot of waste. That's almost as much shit as we have.
Almost.
So we started with the shitter being full.
Now we're finishing
waste,
with
50
million
50 million
pounds of trash.
Okay.
You know why you like
a lot of
talking
trash
about all this?
Why is
You
that?
got that one seat on the bus.
Yep.
Yeah. The toilet.
The toilet.
Guys, I'm sorry. I mean, we haven't heard much from you. So
Well, I kind of zoned out on the.
yeah, you're still on streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, he's wanting to know.
I never got all my questions.
He
in.
wants his
But that's
street
all right,
paved.
you know.
So with 1 minute to go here, tell us somebody who is your favorite misfit. And I know you're tight on time, and I don't want to put you in a hurry to have to get somewhere.
So, we talked about this a little bit because you just threw that on me. And but if you look at, I think it's Richard Branson. He is Virgin Companies. He has a lot of challenges that he's had to overcome in life. He has dyslexia. He is outside the box. He's going to go get it, and if you tell him no, he's going to fight that much harder to make it happen. So if you're looking at a misfit, I think that would probably be one of those for me. I think he has over 60,000 employees now, and 400 different companies, and so to be that successful, he's worth over $2 billion. I mean, that's a big deal to be able to overcome some of those challenges. Just like, I don't have dyslexia, but I struggled in high school. I barely graduated, stayed in detention most of all my time in high school. And I don't have a college education. So that sets me a little bit different from other mayors that you see across.
That's staying in detention. That explains a little bit.
Yeah.
For our listeners, they're probably.
That's how you guys got to be such good.
No, I went to a real school. I went to South Hopkins.
Yeah, that's how those misfits happen. Yeah. Eddie back there is giving you the thumbs up on that. He knows what's up. All right. Well, guys, this has been another episode of Misfit Social Podcast. Thank you, Mayor, for being on with us. And let's get him out of here.
Story.
Let's let him get on the road and drive fast.
We'll get out of here. We'll
The
speed
Flower Man.
They'll speed the exit up.
That's right.
The Flower Man.
Let's go.